Hello, everyone. So, this is our sixth podcast episode. Today, I have David, Sam, and Michael with me today. And for those that don't know, all of us obviously go to USC, and we've actually finished the semester pretty early. So, approximately a month ago, all of us were done with school. So, now we're in like our 1.5 months of break. But that being said, because we have a lot of time left alone to our thoughts at home, we decided to kind of reflect on the past fall semester, having it being like the first semester that we had that was actually remote for the entirety of it. Because obviously, spring semester, we all got evicted from our dorms around March. Very sad time for all of us. But that being said, we will get started. So I guess to start off, guys, how did we feel about the past semester?
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
You can go.
Okay. To be honest, I thought that compared to online versus if we were in person, like what happened this semester when like this online university, it felt much easier compared to like freshman year when we had class in person. Since I know it depends on the teachers or the professor, but my professor was very lenient in terms of the tests. So I had some professors that allow like take home tests, and then others that allow people to have like to take to use notes during the test, since it's almost impossible to prevent students from using notes. So in that way, it was easier. And yeah.
Also, just not just the test, but like also just like the lecture format, I felt was easier for me because like if you have the double monitor setup, then you can just like screenshot what they're saying immediately, and like it like compared to like in person, where you have to like frantically type everything live. You could like go back to the recordings. It's like more accessible, I felt. So note taking just felt a lot easier, and like yeah, kind of what David said. Like a lot of the tests were an open note or just take home, so it's pretty good overall.
Yeah, I guess there were a lot of benefits, like academic wise, because of the leniency that the professor had regarding the situation. But like, I guess like my social life, it was like very negatively impacted by the whole situation, in that if you're not seeing them in person, it's really hard to keep in touch, especially if you're not like constantly contacting them and trying to keep up. So I think a lot of my friends just kind of like drifted apart after the whole COVID situation occurred. And other than that, I think it's like a different experience because like with everyone like living at home and not being on campus, you don't really get the campus experience that like everyone kind of like looked for. And so like you're not really getting the whole undergraduate experience, and I feel like that's a very like important factor for like a lot of people whose priorities lie in like who really looked at college for this kind of experience that they could have had, and like kind of not getting that was a big bust in terms of what's been going on. And I guess like another thing is the fact that like connections are really important to make in the undergraduate um, during the undergraduate time, especially if you're like in a major where you need to make those connections and those friendships right now, like such as like business majors who need to make friends and then like kind of like bounce off ideas of each other. But like we don't really have that, and it's really hard to keep in touch with professors, especially because there are no like, I mean there were set office hours for some professors, but a majority of my professors kind of drifted away from that, and then they didn't have like a set schedule, so you would have to email them and then get into contact. But then like I just thought that was a hassle, especially because I'm like the kind of person who finds that like I don't really need help, but I go to office hours just to like get like those extra details that like the professor might have missed during lectures. So yeah, I kind of missed that from like during my first 2 semesters or 1.5 semesters that I was on campus.
Yeah, I think it's just like one big, like I think it's different per person because for all of us, we have our certain pros and cons with it. I think for us specifically, it was like school to some extent wasn't that bad because like Michael said and like David said, like, lectures kind of got easier or like the exams because some teachers were just like, oh, you know what, just take the take home exams or here, open notes or like no exams, we're just going to do essays instead. Whereas like I know for some students, different majors or whatever you're studying, they have like people who are using like those lockdown browsers and stuff like that. So it's like a lot tougher on them. I don't know. And at the same time, for us, I think for us, the con is that we miss hanging out with friends. We miss that in-person experience like Sam was talking about. And then for other people, it's like their con is the whole academic stuff because for them, for some reason, school got harder, which I think is weird. I think it's interesting that professors, some weren't as accommodating. Like you hear stories of students who are having like a nightmarish, almost hell of what they had to go through. While as for
Yeah.
us, like, like give or take, there's like maybe a TA or two who's not the best, or maybe the professor's like maybe not nice for a certain exam, but for the most part, like it was pretty chill for us. But then you look at everyone else and it's like, geez, everyone else is kind of dying out here. Or I think it's like it sounds so pessimistic, but the truth is the statement's kind of like we're all dying, but we're all dying in different ways in school, if that makes sense.
Yeah, just to kind of add on like my personal experience with some of my like classes. I know for my biochem class, he actually changed up like the whole system so that we had to take an exam every 2 weeks instead of like every month. And so that kind of made my life hell because of the fact that like I would be lucky to have like one exam a week instead of like 2 exams or 3 exams. And it was just like really difficult to manage my time, especially because of the burnout that occurs after you take the exams. You're just like, oh, I want rest, but you can't because you're going to have another exam coming up. So like, I think it's a case by case scenario where like, not only like the lockdown browsers and all that, because like if you're in person, like obviously you can't look at your notes and stuff like that. So like it's just like what you would have had basically when you were on campus. But like the whole scheduling thing with like the professors and them changing it up so that you have like multiple exams or like more quizzes to accommodate for like student situations. Like I don't know if it's a plus or a minus, but like it was kind of hell for me, like personally. So yeah.
And just to add on, I know a lot of people struggle, and I really do think it's like partially is due to this online environment where like I myself will go to like the library to study since it's an environment where I can actually truly focus, where like there's no one really talking, students are all focused on their work. So I become just more productive. While at home, I know a majority of people are at home right now. It may be distracting with other siblings going around. They're also, I know my other siblings are taking classes as well. So I hear other teachers talking in the background. And just, if you don't have another place to work other than your room where your bed is right beside you, it can also be extremely distracting. So not only you become like unproductive, but also this online class system where you can always watch the recording as backup if you do miss class. Like this causes some people to, I guess, slack off a little since, it's like I can always watch this recording maybe 2 days a week or 2 weeks from now. I even talked with some people that had to like watch 20 recordings, like 20 hours of lecture just right before midterm. So yeah.
It's really
I mean, it's not hard. It's like I saw this. I was like, it's funny because I saw this meme the other day, right? And it was basically saying like, I don't know if I sent this to you guys specifically, but the meme was saying like, oh, do you ever feel like you're pulling an academic Icarus, flying too close to your deadlines on the wings of deeply flawed time management? Like, I really feel like to some extent that's what happens. Like, ironically, for some people that at least I've seen, I know it's not different for some people, but a lot of people they tend to have more time during COVID because like unfortunately like internships or like work gets canceled or like maybe clubs are kind of all over the place, right? So for the most part, they quote unquote have more time, but then when you're at home, for some reason it feels like I have less time. Like I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just you guys, but being at home, in theory, I should have more time in my day because maybe I had a job that like had to put me on hold because of COVID, or I have clubs that are kind of like, yeah, we can't even do anything for real, so we'll just meet like once a month, right? So you in theory have more time, but it just feels like you have less time. I don't know why. It's just maybe just being at home and the comfort of just like where my only walk, rather than walking from one end of campus to the other, the most I walk every morning is from like my bedroom to my kitchen, which is basically it.
Mhm. Yeah, I realized that too. Yeah, it's weird because I remember like during the school year, I mean, when we were back in school, like what you were saying, walking around campus or just skateboarding still took a significant amount of time, as well as like, dressing up, doing your hair and everything. But then I thought that when coming home, I have more time. I thinking I have more time, but then in the end, I just felt like I was procrastinating more often.
You just see Michael in the corner smiling because Michael never procrastinated.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah,
So life of a pre-law student.
quite different from you guys, I guess, because like all the professors I had just like outlined all their work, uploaded everything in advance, so like just planned everything out on a day-to-day basis and just knocked out everything. So I was like always a couple weeks ahead. So like in that sense, I didn't really struggle with time, but like I don't know. I guess it's like Simon David said, like person-to-person variance.
Yeah, Michael just struggled with us roasting him for being pre-law while the rest of us are still science majors.
True.
Yeah, no, it's just interesting. I mean, okay, so you know how for all of us, we technically started this in like March, right? Like March, late March, because that's when we got evicted from school. How do you think like right now compares to back then? So like compared to like maybe dealing with 1 or 2 months of having a COVID education versus now where it's a whole semester, how do you guys think it compared to? Like, did you guys feel more used to it or did it feel like different or the same?
I think I like kind of got used to it already at the end of like spring semester. So like fall semester was like, oh, just doing this again, but for 3 months, 4 months, it was like nothing new changed for me per se.
Same. Well, I guess one thing that was different was I know I took physics during the summer. So since COVID was like this whole situation was new, they're still adjusting like the lab and changing the lab manual. So when doing labs in the summer, there are some questions that they'll leave on there and some experiments that they'll leave on there like for students to try to do at home. But then it was like almost nearly impossible since we didn't have all the equipment there. So then this huge struggle of just trying to answer all the questions, going to my TA, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, well you don't have to do that one." Just it was just a huge struggle since everything was just so confusing. But once we got back to fall, and especially USC, but probably the majority of universities out there, they begin to adapt to this COVID-19 situation well in terms of labs, where all the lab manual has been fully adjusted for this at-home experience, where now it's either you do online in a simulation or you buy like some cheap equipment that's actually affordable to use at home. And then lab reports at the time, they're probably relatively the same amount of difficulty in terms of how much effort you have to like and how much time it takes to write those lab reports. But then the lab experiment themselves, since it's not in person, and it's almost impossible to make a lab error or experimental error in a simulation. Just doing the labs themselves were much easier.
I mean, that would be nice back in chemistry, like because we erred it so much. Literally, half of our reports would be chemistry errors. So I mean, it's nice. I mean, they give you the numbers and it's a simulation. I mean, I don't know. If you mess up a imagine messing up a simulation so hard. Like, I don't know. But then also concerned too is like you're doing all of them on simulations. So then let's say you return back to school and you still have to do labs and you're just like, oh, I don't know how to do this because my first experience of doing, I don't know, titrations was online in the computer. So it's like, I worry about that too. But then again, I like altered my schedule this past semester so that I wouldn't take any labs because I was like, oh, maybe things will be okay after this year. And then it's just like, nah, not really. Kinda, yes. I still have to do physics next semester, so it is what it is. But yeah, how about you, Sam? How was the lab experience for you?
I kind of liked it because I think it just got a lot easier because of COVID, where like I would be always stressed out having to like finish everything by the time limit, which was like honestly like which was a long time. It was like 3 hours, but then like I remember like sometimes we would even struggle to like meet that limit, and then like we would want to continue more, but we couldn't. And so like having like labs that only like took about, I guess, like an hour or like an hour and a half at most, I think it was really beneficial for me, especially because like I'm not really a lab person and I would rather, you know, like take exams and do labs. So like I think it was beneficial for me, yeah, as a whole. And then like honestly, like all the time management stuff, it was really difficult for me because of the fact that I get like really lazy, and like that's why I asked myself to live in the library most of the time during like when we were on campus. And so and I had like Michael to like kind of push me because he would always be at the library, so I would just follow him. And like I didn't really have that at home, and so I would just like slack off and then watch the recordings later, like 20 recordings at a time, you know, fast forward that. So I don't know, like I guess like my whole like studying schedule and habits changed a lot because of COVID. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess solution, we're gonna have to ship Michael to Sam's house just to get Sam motivated. Clearly, Sam's motivation is Michael, so ship Michael over.
No, but the problem is Michael's not pre-med anymore. So I was really kind of sad. Yeah.
Dude, you got David.
I think we were all sad. And then I dropped next, but at least I stayed science.
True.
At least I stayed science.
Hey, I'm still technically STEM with my minor. You know what I mean?
Okay, yes, technically, but you haven't taken a minor class yet, so you don't get the right to. I'm just kidding. Okay, but I feel like we're talking about labs right now, and Michael's just sitting here and says like, this is what I dropped out of. But Michael, okay, so you know, like obviously for David and Sam, it's there's obviously, or and myself included, there's a big difference between doing it in person and online because of like the lab stuff. For you, do you think it would make it? Would there be a big difference if you studying at home versus studying in person? Not roasting like poli sci or like liberal arts like majors, but like generally because most of your stuff is like a lot of reading and writing. Do you think there would have been like a big difference?
No, because like lectures are just getting information, and like as you said, humanity is like just heavily reading based. So like it's like what 60, 70 pages, 2-3 days, but like that's just normal. So it's like I don't think anything would have changed. Like for you professors, maybe like they would made it more interactive with discussions and shit, but like you can only do so much to like incorporate that stuff, you know. So it's overall, I don't think it would be too different. Yeah.
No, I feel you on that. I mean, because I took a bunch of GEs this semester because I was like, you know, I want to just get rid of the GEs so that when we do return back, I actually take the classes I want and enjoy them. And I didn't enjoy any of them. Like history was interesting for several reasons.
That was
yeah, that was a rough one. That was a rough one. Every Friday discussion was an experience.
Fascinating experience.
Exactly. Then I had an anthropology class, but we only met once a week during the 1 hour discussion period. But then we had like 3 weeks where we didn't do class because either it was a week of a midterm or she was sick or something happened. So I only showed up to maybe like out of like what, I don't know, because USC accelerated our semester. So like out of like what 12, 13 weeks, I maybe only showed up to class like 9 times in total. So I've only met her 9 times in person. And let's see, what else did I take? Oh, I took math. That was a very interesting experience over to doing math. I think David and Sam can agree because you guys took, well, David, you took physics and you guys also took stats. Math over Zoom. That's an experience in itself. But yeah, no, I mean, you like, we look back a lot to it, kind of comparing. Like, I think, because for us, if we think back to it, I think it's kind of grateful that we're sophomores right now, right? Imagine if we were freshmen going through this.
It'll be
You
so
can only
sad.
imagine what exactly like your first year freshman. Well, not only did you get screwed over in graduation your senior year, but then freshman year didn't get the experience of like, oh, like meeting new people for the first time, like the first time you walk into like bio class and it's a bunch of pre-meds and it's so angsty, that feeling of that environment. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of things we missed out on. But I think next thing I wanted to touch up on, because I feel like school-wise, pretty much at this point, everyone's kind of used to it. But what about like extracurriculars, like that stuff? How did that kind of pan out for you guys?
So yeah, there was one thing I was trying to do this year was find research. And then I realized that a lot of programs were either not accepting or it was just more difficult to get into. And on this like online settings, I know there are labs that require a little bit of like coding knowledge, comp sci knowledge. And then in terms of getting those positions, you have to learn coding. So if you don't know any coding beforehand, you're kind of screwed over there. It just becomes more difficult overall in terms of getting research or extracurriculars.
I feel you on that one. Feel you on that one. How about you, Michael? What's the pre-law extracurricular life like?
I wasn't able to find many like pre-law focus per se, but like it was mostly like more academic based. Like I did a lot of tutoring, like the Teach for Light thing, and like a few other stuff. My part-time is also a lot of tutoring, just like with rare variety from like middle school to like college applications, which I just help out with. Did like a few food bank stuff and like helping with COVID relief, but like that's like once or twice a month maybe. So it's like nothing too big. But like then again, like given COVID, I couldn't really find much per se. So it's just it is what it is.
Reminder: Michael did survive COVID, even though he's never left his house.
Yes.
Quite tragic. Quite tragic experience it was. How about you, Sam?
Extracurriculars.
Yeah.
I think I went more out of my way to like find stuff when COVID started because I knew that like I had to get some before like everyone starts to look for them, because like I feel like extracurriculars are like harder to get now that COVID's a thing. And so like I kind of went out of my way to like be on that like right away. And I did find an internship, which I'm totally grateful for.
David's laughing because he knows that's cap.
No, that's not cap. I'm being for real or no. No, like for real, like that. I'm like really glad that I applied for, because I don't have anything else. Kind of like all I did was like like THV. I mean, like THV was cool too, and I'm really glad that like Christian invited me to do it, because like I don't think I would have had the ability to like form a group where like we could do our individual research project, but like I would probably have joined as like just like a volunteer kind of thing where like you could do weekly reflections and stuff. But like doing an individual project, like it was difficult, but like it was really what do you call it, like significant, and like I like it made me think a lot about like what I really wanted to do and like my interests as well. And so like I think like all these opportunities like just presented itself for me, and so like of course I gladly took it, and like I'm really glad that I did, because I wouldn't have had these experiences were it not for like COVID and stuff, like especially with the individual research project, because like THV didn't do that until COVID. And so yeah, and then I've also done Teach for LA, which was not that big of a part of like my experiences, but like it was interesting because of the fact that it was remote instead of like you going to like a school or something and then teaching kids, because I did JP, which was like kind of similar. So it was kind of difficult. It was kind of difficult to communicate with the children, especially because of my Wi-Fi cutting down. But I mean, we all went through it, so yeah. Let's go.
Just some background information for those who are listening. So what Sam said about THV, it's this program at USC called Trojan Health Volunteer, where it was specifically designed for like students who join the program to volunteer at different hospitals or different clinics. But because of this COVID-19 situation, they split into two programs, where one is you can volunteer at a private organization yourself, or you do this research program that they have where individuals will perform their own research in hopes of getting published in their Trojan Health Volunteers journal. And yeah, very thankful to Christian. What Christian did was that he talked with, was it Sarush or like someone, the head of THV or somewhere around those lines, and asked if we could do this project as a team. So like what Sam was saying, doing this whole research paper as a team with all of us being newbies and stuff was quite interesting, because we had to, in a way, balance all our schoolwork, all our extracurriculars, including volunteering, on top of doing the research. And while it was both stressful, since not only was it like balancing all this different stuff and trying to do well in school, it was also because we didn't know how to, I guess, design our own research at first, or what, like, since we made a survey, right? So like the survey we sent out, was it good enough to the point where we can statistically analyze it and produce significant data? And through all this whole process of doing this research paper and finally finishing the final draft and seeing it to THV, and then talking with a lot of healthcare professionals or just professionals in general at Keck, we realized that in a way, we made a lot of like simple mistakes that could potentially be fixed. So just learning, just doing this whole research paper, just learning about the research process while learning how to allocate time properly was like something huge for me. And honestly, it was both fun and a big learning experience.
Indeed, it was. And honestly, like looking back, I would have like if I had the opportunity to volunteer at a hospital or like go in person, maybe I would have taken it because like there's a lot of time on weekends or like my schedule was pretty nice because Monday, even though Mondays were a living nightmare, I had classes from like 8:30 to 5 nonstop. Like Tuesday to like Friday, I was pretty much done by 12 by lunchtime, right? So I had the rest of the day to do whatever I wanted to do. And looking back, like I think one reason I didn't want to go back was one, Michael got COVID, and I think all of us started panicking. So we were like, nope, not doing that. Especially since Michael's been at home all day. So we were like, nope, I'm not going out to do any extracurricular work, which I don't think is probably safe. I mean, I don't know. There's a vaccine news coming out and stuff like that, but so that was number one. But then two, so the struggle with that is that all of your clubs and activities are online, right? And so I'm an officer in a few clubs, and we talk about a lot about like, oh, what are we gonna do like this next semester? Is it fair for us to charge students like there's like membership club fees and whatnot? And it's kind of difficult because in addition to having to remember that everyone's going through a rough time, especially with like money or whatnot, so fees might not be the most acceptable things. The other issue is that you have kids in other time zones, right? So you have like a meeting, typically you would do it at school maybe at like 7 or 8 p.m., right? Because most people are pretty much done with classes unless you had a lab that went on that late. So Sam and I can relate because I didn't eat the entire day until like 8 p.m. some days, but you have like meetings at like 7 p.m. or like 8 p.m., right? Which would suck because even though because we're Pacific Standard Time, so if we start the meeting at 8 p.m., that means a kid in like let's say New York has to show up to the club at like 11 p.m. Which I don't know about you, but if it was 11 p.m. and I'm doing work, I'm not in the mood to like go to a meeting and where we pretty much, in all honesty, I'm not even flaming any organizations here, but you don't do much because it's just recap meeting. Let's bond with each other. Let's talk to each other. I don't know. And I feel like people already didn't bond enough as it is because, for example, every single time they split us into breakout rooms and rooms, like those breakout rooms on Zoom, we would just sit there in silence. That's literally been us like the past, like how many classes for discussion. Every single time we get put into a breakout room, we just sit there in silence and then wait for them to end the breakout room. So, I mean, it's hard. I mean, being so, you think it's interesting because, just you'd be able to text people and you're quote unquote more accessible to a larger group of people because you're online, you can text people, but then it's like, we don't feel like actually communicating or actually reaching out. So it's like, I don't know, it's tough having to associate like that. It's all right. But then let's see. So for us, I think looking back on this semester, probably kind of wrap up, like, what do you guys think was one thing that you wish you would have done this past, or let's say like, maybe like what's one thing you were glad you did this past semester and one thing you wish you did this past semester? Look at that. David and Michael both gave the same thinking face at the same time.
Honestly, something that I wish I did. So there actually is one thing. I realized since I know starting this new school year as a sophomore and being pre-med and all, I'm taking like pretty hardcore classes with OChem and stats and higher level Chinese. And I know it's going to be even more rough next semester with biochem on top of OChem. But there's one thing I realize is that since now I know a lot of school facilities, they provide a gym for you. Back at home, not only is there no gym, but even the gyms that you have to pay for are closed. So then there's not a lot of opportunities to exercise. And nor since taking all these classes, I don't have a lot of time. So in a way, I did not like work out or exercise as much as I wanted to. So that's something I wish I could have done more.
What was one thing you were grateful you did though, if any?
Oh shoot. Okay. So I know we talked about how since all of us are at home, there's like a lack of social interaction since not only friends at different time zone and not only we're like don't see them often enough to keep a conversation going. So in a way, it's more difficult to maintain friends and keep that like social network that we had back in school. But in a way, it became less distractful. A lot of times where you could be hanging out, you have that time now to study more. So it became both a good and a bad thing. So shoot, what was your question?
It's just like what's something you like you at least you're glad you did, or something that
Okay.
you're glad you experienced.
So I'm glad for is that I was able to recognize that even though it's important to have, to like catch up with friends and talk and socialize and have fun, but it's also important, to understand that there are times when you have to study. And I just realized that during this whole COVID-19 situation. Yeah, just I guess studying more.
Nice, nice. Thank you, David, for volunteering first. Looks like Michael has reached ETC, end of thinking capacity. So, Michael, would you like to go next?
Yeah, sure. So one thing I was glad I did, I guess, was just maintain consistency with my like studying schedule and just keep like making a schedule for like the whole semester so I could just know what to do every day. One thing I wish I did, I'm actually not sure. Yeah, I don't know.
This is what happens when you go from pre-med to pre-law. You have no regrets with life. like like Michael's sanity, he's always happy. He sleeps by 11 p.m. consistently. Whenever David and I text him, Michael, have you done the lecture yet? He goes, oh, I've done the next 3 weeks worth of lecture. Look at this kid. He's happy. He has no regrets of this past semester.
True.
Oh my gosh. It'd be like that sometimes. It'd be like that. But we're happy for Michael. We're glad that finally he no longer has to worry about chem. And instead he has to figure out how to fix our broken government. So thank you, Michael, for your service. Sam, what about you? What's something you're glad you did, or something you wish you did differently?
Like, I mean, I'm glad of like the extracurriculars and stuff like that, like academics or whatever, that I was like able to accomplish all of that despite like being lazy and stuff. But then one thing that like I'm glad happened because of COVID was the fact that like all of my high school friends came home, and so I was able to like hang out with them more. And then I think that's what like kind of helped me like help my mental health stay like okay, at least despite not having that much social interactions, because my high school friends were able to hang out like living close to me and stuff like that. And like I think because of COVID we were able to bond more and then go on trips and stuff. And then one thing that I'm not glad of, or like one thing that I would change if I could go back in time, is to try more in school, because I did not try at all. Yeah, because like I mean, like the professors are lenient and all that stuff. Like I think that kind of like made it easier for me to slack off, especially because I could just watch the recorded lectures before the midterm instead of having to attend every time. So I would just sleep in and then like, not go to classes until the weekends, stuff like that. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Let's see. For me, let me think. One thing I'm grateful for, probably like at least the people I interacted with. So like professors and like friends included. Because it's like like at least with the professors, like if you have to email, like yeah, even though it's like kind of weird, like how scheduling your office hours, at least you could communicate with them, and they were to the most part, at least the ones I've had, were pretty responsive. But also having friends with you too, because then it's like kind of like what Sam said, it kind of keeps your mental health and like sanity in check. Like whether it's like complaining about an unclear grading rubric, or like asking your friends like I don't get how to do this problem, or someone help me. Like I've spent 30 minutes doing one theory problem for math and I have like 12 more to go. It's kind of like nice because you have people to reach out to at least, and I hope at least for the most part a lot of people have that. So that's one thing I'm grateful for, just having a lot of people that I could like talk to, whether it be for whether it's like for fun, whether we're like upset over a certain essay rubric, or whether that be just like just anything, talking about school, working on a project. It was kind of nice at least having that interaction. One thing I would change, trying to think, what would I change? I would avoid taking any history classes with a I'm just kidding, no. Yeah, Michael and David noticed that. Let's see, what would I change? What would I do different? I think for me, maybe it's like maybe spacing out my work distribution a little bit more. So like, for example, let's say for example, my Monday to super pack, and then Tuesday to Friday, I had like the whole day free, right? So I was like, okay, Monday, I know I can't really do too much work because I'll be burnt out by like having 5 or 4 classes in one day. But then Tuesday to Friday, I could do my work, right? But the problem with that too is that when you have so much free time, you're under that perception of like, yeah, I can relax here, or I can relax there. So I think it's maybe for me just taking advantage of those free spaces, because maybe that goes ahead to what we were talking about earlier, like, oh, it feels like you have less free time. And it's because if you think about it, all the time needed to like walk to some place, or to like make sure you get food, like actually order something, and or like whether it's cooking food yourself, or let's say you have to buy groceries, or you have to like get materials from like Target or something like that, right? Like all that time that you had to do those things, you don't have to do those things anymore. So then you fill in those gaps with doing other things. So like going on your phone, taking an extra nap, which more often than not ends up compensating too much time. It just goes over. So then you end up just wasting that time doing whatever it is you're doing. So I think I should probably like take advantage of most of my hours when I can. Like, yeah, obviously like take a nap and relax here and there, but maybe at least be more mindful of it. So that way I can actually sleep like Michael at a same time at like 11 p.m. or something, rather than like 2 in the morning.
Ooh.
I know. Michael, what time did you sleep? What was your average time this past semester?
Average? Like 11 to 12?
Oh my gosh.
David, what was yours?
I think the earliest I slept was like the first week was 2:30, but then on average,
Yikes.
3 or 4.
3 or 4? What about you, Sam? Actually, I don't even know if I should ask Sam. Sam, your schedule was so inverted.
So true.
So I would sleep like, I don't know, like 4 or something, and then right before the midterm I would just do an all-nighter, and then I would sleep in on classes. So basically I just slept in the morning.
Honestly,
Yeah.
Nice.
Damn, it'd be like that.
intense.
It is. I think I was averaging, it depends. For me, on a good day, it would be like 12. And then some days it would be like 2 or 3. Yeah.
Right?
So, I mean, it was different for everyone. But yes. So, anyways, boys, that's a wrap for this one. But cheers to a wild,
Wait,
accelerated semester. Oh,
I think
Sam
before
is-
we leave we should like give an advice, just like for like just COVID stuff,
Oh yeah.
because like
Oh,
yeah,
makes
I would definitely tell like people to like keep a close. Am I lagging?
No,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. A little bit, but
Not
you're
even-
good.
Oh,
Oh, we lost him.
Oh, we lost Sam. Well, to continue Sam's legacy on giving advice. Oh, no, Sam's
I'm
here. Sam's
back.
back.
So, what I was saying is like keep a close friend group to like aid you through the semester. I know I had like Christian, Michael, and David, especially David, because we're taking most of the same classes. So I would highly recommend to keep like a close friend group where you could just say whatever and like talk about classes, talk about like life and stuff like that, just to like keep your sanity in check.
Mm.
One thing I would say is just it's just like time management and scheduling, because like it's a bit hard to pick up, but like once you pick it up, it makes your life really convenient. Like having everything planned out for like the weeks in advance. It's just you know what to do. You don't have to stress out about like unforeseen events. It's like just be prepared for everything that comes your way.
David?
I guess an advice is, I know I came into this like whole COVID-19 situation thinking that there's not going to be extracurricular opportunities there for me. So then, and I know other people felt the same way. And then as a result, not a lot of people like try to pursue opportunities or try not to, like, they didn't find, or like they didn't even think about finding opportunities. But I'm saying that there is still opportunities out there. Well, it's true, it might be more difficult. They're still out there. So, you just got to keep finding them.
I think my advice, this kind of goes back to like what Sam and Dave we were talking about earlier, that research project we did, right? With like, because for those that don't know, we did a research project talking about like mental health during a time of COVID, like seeing how that kind of related to each other. And a lot of times in the surveys when we were reading them, we had a little free response section asking kids like, oh, how they were doing, all that stuff, and you can kind of tell that. I would say like a random number, but roughly like let's say 90% of the kids were basically saying that they weren't doing too good, right? So that's kind of a scare, right? Because it's like, you don't want people to ever be in that situation. It's good that at least some people are like still doing well, and whatnot, but a good majority of people, they're all going through something in some way for another, whether it be worrying about housing or whether it be like school's not, it's hard to make friends, or like it's hard to learn in general. So just like taking care of yourself, I think that's the most important thing. Kind of adding on to like what Sam said. That's so important to do, especially nowadays, because let's be real, it's a weird time for everyone. It's not, the truth is like, you're not the only one that's going to go through things, everyone else is going through it too, right? So it's like, just remember to take care of yourself, like be there for other people too, because your friends will be there for you as well. And at the same time, it's like there's a lot of uncontrollable things that are just going to come up in life, but as long as you like manage the stuff that you can control, so whether it be like your health or whether it be like time spent with family and stuff like that, just worry about those first, because then it makes all the uncontrollable stuff seem a little bit easier to tackle. So that way you don't have to worry about being flustered when those like kind of like what Michael said, unexpected situations come up here and there. But yeah,
Nice.
any last words, boys?
No.
Nope.
All right, with that, we will reinstill my cheers to a accelerated semester, and hopefully next semester we come back from this in person.
Yes.
Be alive.
Yes.
Yeah. Alrighty.